Today, I'm going to talk about two pens from the same manufacturer that look totally different, but have the same actual motif. They're both pens with a dragon motif, and both made by Jinhao. The first pen we're going to talk about is the Jinhao 950. This is a heavy Chinese pen with a Chinese dragon motif. The pen is metal and porcelain, so it's a heavy pen. It weighs 55 grams. It's a heavy pen. It does fall into that category of generally inexpensive Chinese-made pens. This pen costs generally between $4 and $6, depending on where you buy it. The pen has a porcelain on both the cap and the barrel. The barrel has this Chinese dragon design, which looks very nice in blue. And on the cap, it has Chinese characters, which I believe are the Chinese word for dragon. The cap band is a simple chrome cap band that says Jinhao and 950. And the end of the cap is also chrome, and that's meant to accommodate posting of the cap. The top of the cap has a chrome ring and a black finial. Might have looked a little nicer to have that in blue to match the blue on the pen, but it's got a black finial. And it has this very sort of simple Jinhao clip with the Jinhao chariot logo on a little shield. The clip, it's functional, but it's challenging to clip this to a pocket or whatever because of the weight of the pen. So it's a normal clip that's functional, but just keep in mind that just sort of clipping this to a pocket is gonna strain your pocket because, again, it's a 55-gram pen. It's a heavy pen. Like I said, the pen does post, and it posts solidly. But it is quite top heavy when you post it because of the weight. I do use this pen posted though. The section is quite long and comfortable. The step down here is really nothing, so to speak of. It's got a standard number 5 Jinhao nib, which is found on many other Jinhao pens. It's got the Greek style scroll work, a round breather hole, the Jinhao chariot logo, the word Jinhao, and then the F for fine. The filling mechanism on the pen is a standard international cartridge. And that is pretty much it for the Jinhao 950. The Jinhao 1200, oh, by the way, the 950 also, if you don't like dragons, you can get the exact same pen in several other motifs. They make one with horses and one, I believe, with flowers, etc. So there's other patterns if you like the general pen, but you're not crazy about dragons. This pen, on the other hand, is all dragons, all day, all the time. It's, again, also a metal pen, also a heavy pen, not quite as heavy as this pen. This pen weighs 50 grams. The 950 weighed 55 grams, but it's still a heavy pen. Black metal with black lacquer, with the end cap is gold colored with a black finial at the end. The top of the cap is also gold colored with a black finial, but it also has a little bit of a design pattern inset into the top of the finial. The cap band says Jinhao 1200 around the cap band. Now we get to the clip. The clip pretty much makes the pen. It's the neck and head of a Chinese-style dragon with red gemstones inset for eyes, and the clip functions. It actually clips pretty well. If you don't like this design, they make the exact same pen. Instead of a black body, you can get one with an all-gold body and an all-silver body, which are much flashier. So believe it or not, this is the most understated version of this Jinhao 1200 that they make. But it is a nice pen, and it's got a good solid feel to it, and it does post. It posts well, and it posts solidly. This pen has a much nicer nib. It has the Jinhao number 6 nib. It's a two-toned nib with the Jinhao chariot logo, a little bit of scroll work, the words Jinhao, and then it says 18K GP, which presumably means 18 karat gold plated, although it is a steel nib. It's not marked it's a fine to medium nib, which we'll see in the writing sample, but it does not have a marking on it for the size. In terms of overall sizes of these pens, they are both pretty much the exact same size of each other, as you can see. And again, if you compare them to a Lamy Safari and a Pilot Metropolitan, you can see that all of these pens are pretty much exactly the same size. Let's look at the nibs side by side for a minute, just so you can get an idea of the difference between the number 6 and the number 5 nib. As you can see, the number 6 nib is quite a bit bigger than the number 5 nib. It would have been nice to have the number 6 nib in this pen as well, because it is a great looking nib, and it writes great too. You'll see that shortly. Speaking of writing, you're probably wondering how these pens write. Let's go check that out right now. Okay, first up we have the Jinhao 950, and this has a number 5 steel nib. It's a standard Jinhao number 5 steel nib that we see in a lot of other pens, such as the 992, for example. It's an average wetness, very typical nib that we see in a lot of pens. The nice thing is, if you want to do some experimenting with this nib and you mess it up, you can go buy yourself a 992 for less than $2, swap the nibs, and you're back where you started, because it's a very widely available, inexpensive, reliably writing nib. And it writes well. You can maybe push a tiny bit of flex out of it, but it is not a flex nib by any means. You can see I pushed it a little too much there, but there is a little bit of line variation to be had, but not much for sure. That's about all there is to say about this nib. Like I said, good, decent nib on an inexpensive pen. Now, this ink is Diamine, China Blue. There's really only one choice of ink for this pen. It's a pen that's got blue trim. It's made out of China. It's made in China. So Diamine China Blue is really the only reasonable choice to pair this pen with this pen. This is what I would refer to as a general purpose blue ink. To me, it's very much like the blue ink you see in 99% of the fountain pen, disposable fountain pens and roller balls that are out there. You will not draw attention to your writing with this ink. So if you want to be unobtrusive and sort of conservative, if you will, this is a nice, good conservative choice for a blue, sort of standard, ordinary blue ink. It has decent dry time, doesn't feather, all around well behaved, good, solid workhorse blue ink, and I definitely do recommend it. So there you go. That will be the Jinhao 950. Okay, now let's talk about the Jinhao 1200. This is a much nicer nib. The nib in the 950 is nice, the number 5 nib, but this number 6 Jinhao nib, which is found in a lot of other Jinhao pens, for example, the 159 has this exact same nib. This is a great nib. It's somewhere between the fine and medium range, so this is the number 6 nib. And it just, I love the way this writes. It's a decent, not a broad, but a nice wet pen that writes smooth, very smooth. It's a smooth writer for sure. And I've always been very happy with all of these pens that have this number 6 nib in it. One thing that applies to all these inexpensive Chinese pens is what you want to do when you first get them before you ink them up is pull out the nib and feed, wash it off with some warm water and a little dish soap, rinse it, dry it, put it back in, and you will have a very good experience with these inexpensive Chinese pens. That is for sure. This ink is a somewhat misunderstood ink. This is Diamine Red Dragon. Now, it's misunderstood because with an ink named Red Dragon, people are sometimes expecting a fiery, bright red. That's not what this ink is. This is more of a brown than it is a red. If I had to name this ink, I would call it more of a brick red than Red Dragon. I just simply paired it with this pen because, come on, I got a dragon with red eyes. You had to put Red Dragon in here. But what people are expecting, I think, with this ink is something more like a teacher's correction pen, kind of bright red. That's not what this is. Like I said, it's a nice darkish color with some character. More of a brick red, and it really works well, and it flows great, and I really like it a lot. Again, a color like this you can't use for every occasion. Certainly not a substitute for a classic blue or a black ink, but this Red Dragon is a good solid ink. The red on the label is not reflective of what's in the bottle. What's in the bottle is definitely a brownish red. This is showing much more of a bright red. So I think this ink gets somewhat of a misunderstanding, and people don't really give it a close look, because I think that name, Red Dragon, kind of turns some people off or gives them the impression it's a very different kind of ink than it really is. Okay, well, I think that will do it for both the 950 and the 1200. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you don't like the video, please leave a comment and tell me why. In any case, bye-bye.